I told you the bullish advice when it was just chatting. Then I realized you were making quite a big life decision. I was like, okay, I just need to temper myself back now and go, forget the bullishness, forget the charts. That's just fucking looking at your star sign. I have no clue what Bitcoin's going to do in the next 2 weeks. I am very confident what Bitcoin's going to do over the next 10 years. It's going to go straight fucking up.
So just as it peaked over nine grand, I did sell enough to get £1,000 out.
What the fuck?
To pay for the honeymoon.
What a load of bollocks.
No, I know. No, but again, what it was.
You did not tell me this.
I know that.
I would never. This is why I hold your Bitcoin now, so you can't sell it.
I know. You can strap on. I'm going to strap in. Sweet. Okay. So
we're here, aren't we? Because we're two brothers in Bitcoin.
That's it. It's what brought us together.
Yeah, not a blood relation. Bitcoin.
Bitcoin brought us together, not Bitcoin.
We hated each other our entire lives, and we found Bitcoin, and it united us.
It did. It just everything clicked into place, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I obviously my first memory of Bitcoin was just before I went traveling in 2015, and we were having my leaving party, and you started talking about Bitcoin. First time I ever heard it, and you said, "Oh, you've heard about this," and I pretended I had heard about it. You started going into a bit of detail, and I was like, "Oh, fair play." And then you said you bought a little bit, and I think, 2008, 2015, I think it was something daft like £300 or £400. It was really cheap, wasn't it? Yeah. And you bought a bit, and then a couple of months later you sold it, didn't you, just to see if you could get in and out. And then a year later I came back in 2016, and obviously had no job, no money, and you would you'd gone in a bit heavier, and we went on a stag do, didn't we? And I remember we were in the hotel room or wherever it was, and you were just like, your phone kept buzzing. I was like, "What's your phone going on?" And you were like, "Oh, Bitcoin's just gone up. It's just hit 1,000." And in the same night, I think it went to 2,000. And it was just ridiculous how quickly it was going up. I was like, "What's all this?" And that was the August, wasn't it? Can remember. And so I thought, right, okay, I need to talk to you about this properly. And I didn't have much money at the time at all, because I'd only just got back into work. So when we got home after the stag, we just started talking about it, and I sold some investment that we'd put in from your recommendation about 4 years previous. So I sold that out, and I got Dad involved as well. I said that this is what I'm thinking of doing. So I need the money out. He did the same, but he didn't know about Bitcoin. So I bought in 2017, around September time, I think it would have been. And quite incredibly, wasn't it? It went, and before you know it, you're going, bloody hell, this is incredible. And then, well, to be honest, it was the first buy-in of it, because you had said to me, I have to go and purchase it. It's sort of, I guess it's a little bit of a test, isn't it? You go and work it out, and you got to go and put your money in Coinbase, because that's the exchange we use. And you taught me through it, to be fair, and it was proper scary. The first transaction, sending, right, at that point, a couple of £1,000 or whatever it would have been, to an Estonian bank account, and sort of just waiting for it to arrive. And I can't remember if it took a day to do it. You put it into Coinbase, and then you put a ridiculously long code in, and did what do they call it, a bank wire or something, or
an international bank.
That's it. Yeah. and that was just eventually it lands, and then you get it in euros, and you're like, yes, now you can buy Bitcoin. And then it was the case of then getting onto a wallet, because obviously at the time it was not safe to leave it on the exchanges, because what exchange had just gone down, then the guy had run away. Was it a Chinese one?
It was based in Japan, and
Japan.
It was, to be fair, it was about 3 years previous. It was called Mt. Gox, and that was the one.
That's it.
Yeah, they'd essentially had every single Bitcoin that was stored on that exchange had been stolen out the back door. So every single balance that every customer had, they was not really there. It was just a number on a screen, literally almost like what our bank accounts are in the traditional world, where there's no dollars or pounds backing that stuff. But we kind of get away with it in that world. But in the Bitcoin world, if the Bitcoin does disappear, you can't just print more and go, oh, well, we need a bailout. Like the exchange literally lost every single Satoshi that they were meant to be storing because there was a bug in their hard storage and there was a hacker filtering it out as it was coming in. They were filtering it straight out again. And
Wow.
yeah, and so every single person that had money and left on Mt. Gox back in 2013, yeah, they got completely rug pulled and lost every single penny of that.
Yeah, that I just remember that story that you told me, and it did scare the hell out of me. And at the time of buying it, because we moved quite quick, to be fair, didn't we? From when I sort of got interested, and then I obviously asked you a load of questions, and my understanding level at that point was not at all. It was just exactly the thing you said. It's going to go up. I agreed. I trusted you, and I bought in, and I had no means of cold wallet storage, anything like that. So I remember leaving it on there, and it was very nerve wracking. And then I think it would have been probably the Christmas, you bought me a wallet, didn't you? I think in the short term, actually, we put it on yours, didn't we? And then you explained everything about, the words, and that was out of this world, because the thing that I didn't get was you've got this USB device and it comes with a key ring and like a lanyard, and it's almost like they're asking you to wear it around your neck as like a display, but it is the equivalent of wearing, well, in this day and age, a gold bar around your neck, or a load of £50 notes. You just wouldn't do it. So from it being like a social thing, almost a brag to say, look, well, you were saying, no, it's, you got the 24 words. If your house burns down and you lose it, or, your kid chucks in the toilet, you need to have a backup. And so I was thinking, okay, I put them on my iPhone, put it on the cloud. It's safe, isn't it? And you're like, that's exactly what you don't do, because Mr. Hacker can access your cloud and then you have your words. So that was the thing, wasn't it? And it was the next level of of understanding, was a bit of security. Like, you haven't got a bank, and it was very hard for me to comprehend this. So we haven't got a bank. Okay, so who has it? Well, you have it. Okay, so once I want to sell it and it's on this cold storage, you have to send it to an exchange. How do I do that? And there was a lot of different like levels of understanding of that and why you were doing it. And it's what you do with those 24 words, passwords, all that sort of thing. And the simple thing like the authentication steps, not just having a password, you have to have, on numerous devices. So you have to access all these devices in order to get onto Coinbase. So simple things like that, I would never have known. But obviously you're tech savvy and you knew all this security stuff through your research in the past. So I think that's something that if I had known before buying it, might have been helpful as well. And I think that's a lot of people's concerns, is they just go onto Coinbase, buy it, leave it on there.
Yeah. And they're going to make a load of big mistakes, and it's going to cost them everything. Because I remember another thing you were quite proud of when you were sorting out your 24 words, and I talked you all through it. I said, write them down on bits of paper to begin with, and then I'll talk you through the next stage, which is essentially putting it on metal and making sure it's safe from fire and flood, because just having a paper version is still not good enough, because you've got to assume that what if your house does burn down, or it can happen. Paper can just waste away. You just leave it for 10 years. And you were really proud. You were going, oh, I'm gonna do this properly. I'm gonna take my 24 words into work, write them into the computer and print them out. And so they'd be nice, because I don't want my handwriting to be a bit like messy. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, do not type your words into any electronic device, never mind a work device, which is connected to thousands of other computers, and then print it. There's a permanent copy of every single document ever sent to a printer. And in the future, you just never know. Probably back then, no one would have known what a random page with 24 words in meant. But you can fast forward a couple of years, and you would be sat there with your cold storage, thinking your device is completely safe. And then one day they would every coin would just disappear and you'd have no clue where it came from. And it would be, remember that mistake you made when you worked for that company, and someone decided just on the off chance, some guy in IT went, I wonder if anyone did print their 24 words out. I'm just going to do a little search for a document that only has 24 words in it and just see what I get. And they would have got your document, they'd have gone and shoved it into their ledger and gone, jackpot, sent it off. And you'd have just been sat there going, I have no clue. And we'd have been talking about it going, what have you done? Like, you've obviously done something recently. And it wouldn't have been recently. It would have been 5, 6, 10, 20 years ago. And that one mistake would have cost you everything. And that is what terrifies people about Bitcoin, and rightly so, because it's not easy. And that's why at the moment, because it's not easy, the gains are huge. You can, once it becomes really easy and all this is super simple, there won't be as many gains to be had. So if you can figure it out and get through those technical hurdles, then you're still early, and we're still super early now, because it's still difficult even to today. It's simpler than it was back then, but it's still difficult. A lot of people are intimidated. A lot of people don't even know how to open a stockbroker's account just to buy a share. So when you go to the next level of you need to open a very specific type of stockbroker account, which is an exchange to buy Bitcoin. And oh, by the way, you shouldn't leave that there. You also need to take custody of it. That now, the first level was too much. The second level just blows their mind, and they'd prefer just to do nothing. And then they'll pay the price for that, because they'll have to work until they're 65. And sucks to be them.
I'll tell you, I actually completely forgot about that. And I wasn't just thinking, my handwriting. I remember what my thought process was. Biro fades over time. So I thought, I don't want to use Biro. Let's do it on computer ink. But you're so right. And just a clever IT guy could easily work out a search or a macro, or whatever it be, to get that. And it's like you say, 24 words. In the future, it's going to be obvious what that is. Right now, it probably still isn't, but like you say, fast forward it, and we would be sat there going, how the hell have I messed that up? And I haven't messed it up. It's just, it was that mistake in 2017. Wow. Yeah. Thanks. Save my bacon.
I'm just glad you actually said what you were doing as well, because you were quite proud of it. You were almost like, I'm going to go to this extra effort. I'm not just going to write it down. I'm going to go an extra mile. And thank God you actually mentioned it, because if you hadn't, I potentially would never have known, unless I'd have ever asked to see your words, which would have been relatively unlikely. And then I would not know that you had a little printed bit of paper somewhere. And when the second I saw a printed bit of paper, I'd have gone, right, we're resetting your ledger. We've got to move everything off. We've got to assume this is compromised. Let's just hope it's still there now. And we could have reset it. But potentially I never would have seen that paper, never would have asked the question, because I told you to write it down and you went, I'm going to go the extra level, I'm going to print it out, without realizing you've severely compromised everything. Everything else I do on top of it would be pointless, because those 24 words is the key straight to the vault. And
that's incredible, isn't it? It's simple mistakes. And then I just remember, so we're sort of touching Christmas time, aren't we, in 2017? That was a good Christmas, wasn't it? It was, I think it hit 13, maybe 12,000 just at the end of December, and then January at some point it hit that almighty 14k.
Well, it was just before Christmas it hit the peak. It was Christmas that it started to crash. It wasn't a good Christmas.
Oh, was it? It wasn't it? Okay. I knew we were excited, but I thought it was going to go on forever. I didn't see a crash. Why would it crash? I had not really zoomed. When I got on board of this, the graph was I was probably at $3.5 when I bought in. So we're talking, and it gets to 7, 8, 9. When you zoom out, the peak of it would have been 2013, would it have been, or 2012, whatever it was, the peak for earlier. It was disappeared, because obviously it peaked at £1,000 or £900 or something. So relatively, it was tiny. So I couldn't appreciate the drop from £900 to 250, whatever it was. But it was still a massive rise from what it was prior to the peak. So when we observed that 12 days of falling off the cliff, I gotta say, my mates at work that knew that I had bought in, and they said oh, you gotta be selling. It's like huge, and no one to buy in, because it's obviously there's no money left in Bitcoin. And when it was going down, I told you, told you. And I was like, Christ. And it was difficult. It was hard to stomach losing that sort of sums of money. Well, I say losing. It was never ours, was it? It was in Bitcoin. But it was hard to just watch that go and thinking, gee, maybe we got greedy. Do we take it out a bit, now? But then it was just the hodl came in, didn't it? Or hodl. That was invented at that time, wasn't it?
That was invented like 2012, something like that.
It was the first time I'd heard of it. And it was just stick. You'd be all right. Just hold it. It's fine. So that was difficult. But it was a long few years then, wasn't it? And it was a good opportunity, actually, when we look back, to keep stacking. And that's basically what we did. And then this is where the next level of understanding comes in about the halving. So before I was thinking, right, so how does Bitcoin, how, because only 21 million, who gives you these 21 million? That doesn't make sense. And then obviously when you read about it, it's about every time it gets mined and the transactions are put onto the blockchain, and then the reward is a certain amount of Bitcoin. And then every 4 years it gets halved. Therefore, there's less available, and obviously more's out there. And it's the supply to flow model, isn't it? Stock to flow model, supply, same difference. And and once you understood that, and then you were thinking forward of 2019 is the next halving, you think, okay. But then it was quite hard to still believe in this game, because it hit £2,000. So it was considerably less than what I had initially bought in at. But then, like I say, once you get that understanding, it's just starting to keep putting a little bit of money in, and money that you can afford to leave in for a number of years, which is what you always sort of really advocated. Whatever you put in, don't expect to have it out in the next few years. Make sure you don't need it. And that was the best advice, because I know people did remortgage houses. They went into debt to buy at 9-10 grand of that bull run, and they got severely wrecked, didn't they? So if you need the cash, you need it out. So yeah, they got knackered. So what we ended up doing is setting up like the Revolut account, wasn't it? And all your spare change was getting converted. Well, if you bought something for 90p, the 10p would then get exchanged automatically into Bitcoin. And before you know it, that adds up, doesn't it? Especially when you put the 10x multiplier on it. And so over time, that's just got more and more. And I still remember that time when we'd had some money come in from like a tax rebate, and I said to you, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in, and you said how much about, and I halved it to tell you. I didn't want to tell you how much it was going to be. And anyway, it was like 11 o'clock at night. I'd finally got my wife to sort of agree that it was a good idea, because it was, I think Bitcoin was at, I don't know, about 9 grand. So it looked like it was going to be doing the next peak. And put it into Coinbase. From the bank transferred to Coinbase, and then it didn't arrive in Coinbase. And obviously the times had changed a bit, so it wasn't quite as difficult as what it was in 17. And it just didn't arrive. And then I went onto my bank and it had gone. I was like, what have I done? Oh no, has it gone? Because it's quite easy, because you have to put quite a big reference code in. And I triple checked it, and it didn't arrive. So I phoned up the bank, and luckily they're just frozen it. But I was quizzed for some time online. It was about midnight when I was doing it, and I've never sweated so much, because I've just got the wife to buy into this, and then the money's frozen. So that was a scary time. And then you remember you saying the fact you're like worried about it. It's obviously money you can't afford to lose. And I was like, well, I can't afford to lose that money now.
Yeah, I knew it was too much. I remember those conversations around that time, and you were asking about the price quite a bit. I didn't click at the time, because I'm always super bullish anyway. I think it was around 9k, and there was some people doing random charts, and I don't really believe in half the charts they do. But there was a lot of people that were quite bullish, and they're going, "Oh, about to do a double up here, about to go from 9 to 18, or something. About to kick off." And what I hadn't realized really what I'd done is you were thinking all this, and you hadn't really told me. And then afterwards, you were like, "Oh, I'm about to do a buy," and I think you halved it or whatever. But it was still, when I heard it, I was like, "That's still too much." Like whatever, like no, don't do that. Don't do it in one go. At least split it into 10 and spread it over the next 10 weeks. But you were like, "But it's going to double, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Well, I think so, but I'm not a trader, and I'm just hodling." I've got my stack. I'm not about to lump in. I'm not about to just the same rules apply. Just DCA, just dollar cost average in nicely and just ride it out. And if it ends up doubling, then just you just kind of pay the price, but it might not. And then, yeah, you had those issues with the bank because whenever people suddenly start moving large amounts of money from their bank, it's an unusual activity that you've done. So they automatically assume fraud, especially when it's going out of the country, especially when it's going to a crypto exchange. They automatically start going, are you a terrorist? Are you a drug dealer? They all automatically assume the worst. So you finally get it out of there. And then lo and behold, what happens is I think Bitcoin, once you've got it in and purchased, it dumped like 30-40% in the next week. And it was like, well, at least I knew. I told you. I told you the bullish advice when it was just chatting. Then I realized you were making quite a big life decision. I was like, okay, I just need to temper myself back now and go forget the bullishness, forget the charts. That's just fucking looking at your star sign. I have no clue what Bitcoin's going to do in the next 2 weeks. I am very confident what Bitcoin's going to do over the next 10 years. It's going to go straight fucking up. But next 2 weeks, it could go straight down. I don't know. Like, it's literally this, the Bitcoin does what Bitcoin does, and it tends to really keep people honest. And the second, whenever like individuals make mistakes, kind of like what you did there in a way, where you went against my advice, it punished you straight away and went, fuck off, I'm going down 30%. And you're sat there like, straight away off a quite a big buy, you're 30% down. That's probably quite a few months worth of earnings. And it's like, oh my God, what have I done? I've just evaporated a load of money. It's like, well, now this is the test, because if it was too much and you're stressed and you're hovering over the sell button going, I just need to take out what I've got left, it was too much. But fortunately, even though I think it did hurt a little bit, if you fast forward a couple of months, you were back in the green and it was all okay again. But it's
well, interestingly, it's in 20. I think it was like the summer of 2018. So it must have just bumped. I think it was 18. Yeah, I remember where I was. I was in Newquay when we did it, and it went from that, it dropped massively, and eventually we went down to 3K.
It carried on going all the way down.
Yeah, it went down. I remember hodling at like 2,600, and I gotta say,
that's like 70%. That's nice. Yeah, that's tasty. That's really, you can get some blood out of you. That one, 70% down.
Yeah, and I'm numb to a drop now. I'm numb to it. But the beauty was I learned a huge lesson at such a pivotal time. So I think the moral to the story was, and this advice I give to everyone now, just do it over a set period of time. If it's over 6 weeks, over 8 weeks, just do payday every month, X amount of money goes in. Does it every day, every month on the same day. And I've got a theory about the way that Bitcoin works as well, because I feel that by the end, most people get paid on the 28th. So I think people get a bit short, and then they start to sell towards the end, just before payday, because you'll see a slight decline in Bitcoin price, and then the 26th comes, I buy, and then generally the week after it goes up. But obviously it goes like as we know, like a sinus wave, doesn't it? But the way of doing it every month with money that you don't necessarily need is my advice all the time. It's little and often. And the big buys, you're absolutely right. All it takes is a small percentage down. If you put 10K in, say, and it goes down a few percent, that's like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, is what I'm interested in, because I've done the same thing. Like, I YOLO'd in twice, and so I don't follow my own advice, but I knew the only person that was going to suffer for was me. I had made this money out of other investments. I'd studied Bitcoin for 3, 4, 5 years before I actually went in. So I didn't do the DCA thing probably at all. But then I was just studying it, researching it, trying to figure it out. And then once it clicked, I just couldn't get enough in quick enough. and sure enough, exactly the same thing happened to me. I went all in at about £1,000. And the next week it went down 30% to 700. And I'm just sitting there. I was on holiday at the time in America, in San Francisco, looking at it on my phone. And I had lost it nearly ruined the holiday. I had lost so much money. I just couldn't believe it. Everyone was telling me that this big ETF was going to get signed off and it was going to go from 1,000 to 10,000 in the next couple of months. And the ETF got declined. So it went from 1,000 to 700. And I had lost an absolute shit ton of money that had taken me a decade to build up. and 30% just gets wiped out in a week. I'm like, I'm the biggest moron ever. All my research was for nothing. What the hell am I doing? But I'm like, just put your phone down. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm just being emotional. Just forget it. And true enough, like you fast forward 12 months and my prediction had come true, and we were well above 10k. It was just, but in the 2 weeks that I did it, I was wrong. But over a 12-month period, I was right. But the thing is, for me, I don't have to discuss this with anyone. I don't make sure I don't have any debt. This was purely like kind of play money for me anyway. I was just kind of playing the casino to a certain extent, going, I've got a number in my head that I need to get to, and I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get to it. And I don't discuss these decisions with anyone. I make my own decisions. I just go. If it all goes wrong, the only person that suffers is me. So I just kind of YOLO in, YOLO out, make my decisions. But like why it's different with you is, number one, like you didn't have like a kind of a software technical job like I did. You're obviously working in the medical profession. And then you got the wife, you got the kids, you got the mortgage. So that's much more the average person's situation where you were, where me, I've kind of like all responsibility. I just run away from it from the looks of it, because I never seem to have any. So I must run away from it. So I can kind of do these things, and I'm just accountable to myself. And that's it. But what I'm interested in is, number one, the discussion that must have happened to make the buy in the first place to the level you did. And then number two, what happened afterwards when it dumps 70% and just bleeds out over the next 6 months? Like how did that go?
Yeah. So I think the previous bull run helped because we saw the volatility of it and how it went up. However, going as it went down, it wasn't very healthy. But a lot of it was my confidence in your belief in it. We had a history together where we had done a few predictions that had come true, and again, it didn't happen overnight. It came over a period of time, and I was never under the illusion that I was going to make very quick rich gains. That was never the thing. It was always for the future. It was always to pay off the mortgage. It was always to have a better life in the next sort of 10 years. So the way that we discussed it was that we would try and put as much money as we could, but at the time, like you say, with all those outgoings and being in the medical profession and the wife being on Holly being on maternity pay, we didn't have that much expendable cash. And like you were saying how your money was play money because you had done your career, you'd done really well. We weren't in that position, so when we got the money back through the tax, it was something that we didn't expect to have. So that was the key. It wasn't life savings. So it's money we never had, and we didn't have. When you say about debts, all the debts we had were planned, forecasted, and we could afford them with what we had. So this was free money that was going to go into the bank basically and sit there. And what I did initially, I sort of played it as a bit of a business case, what I have to do all the time at work. I said what the alternatives are, like an options analysis. I was like, so this 9k, 10k, whatever it was, can go into the bank, and it can earn probably minus 2%. So we can do that. We can do that.
Or 0.1 or something, yeah.
But over a year, probably lose a bit, don't you, with inflation?
So, of course, yeah. So the bank will give you basically 0.5% interest. So it looks like on paper your number is going up.
Yeah.
But the spending power of that money with inflation of 2 to 4% a year, it's like an ice cube. You put your 10k in there. And if you come to get that 10k out in 20 years' time, there might be £10,500 in there, but that 10 grand that would buy you a car today won't even get you a deposit on a car in 20 years' time. So
absolutely,
it's so that option's like setting fire to it. Basically, you've got to do something with it. You have to.
And then stocks and shares, we looked at that, but again, don't know nothing about it. That's like we'd have to give it to a man to invest or whatever. And again, 10k is small fry. They're not interested, and you're probably going to get, well, they reckon 3 to 5% is a good return on safe stocks. So again, it's not. Yeah, maybe it's a load of bollocks. I don't know, but again, that's not life changing. So it's going to be a few £100. Like, okay, that's nice, but it's not special. And I looked like long-term ISAs, fixed ones, leave them in there for 5 years, fixed, so you can't touch it. So again, that money's gone for 5 years, and you might make it. I don't know. Let's say £500. Again, it was small money that you're going to make. So I said, well, if we've got 5 years in something like that, which is a safe option, is guaranteed, you're going to have that money back in 5 years. But what is 10 grand? It's lovely, it's nice, but it's not going to do anything. Whereas this, five years down the line, I believe it's going to go somewhere. And I sort of tried to explain why. And anyway, she agreed. So we went with it, and she sort of said, "Oh, I trust you. We'll go with what you think." When it went down, what I did was initially, I didn't say anything because she didn't have any access to the charts or anything. But she noticed that I went quiet about it. So I played it down a bit, and I just came clean. I said, "It has." Well, to be honest, what I did was when it recovered from that 30% initially, I said, "Okay, we've lost a bit, but it has gone up 10% over the last few weeks." And I said, "But don't worry about it.
It's gone up 10%. Oh, brilliant. Are we like a grand up?" No. We were already 3 grand down. And now we've just made 1 back. We're still 2 down. Like, what the fuck is like, this? Is how is this good news? This is just like.
So actually, what I actually did, I don't know if I ever told you this. So what we did is we went to. It recovered, and it recovered because before it went down 30%, it recovered to just over what it was, and then it went back down, and it went eventually to 2K. So just as it peaked over nine grand, I did sell enough to get £1,000 out.
What the fuck?
To pay for the honeymoon.
What a load of bollocks.
No, I know. No, but again, what it was.
You did not tell me this.
I know, didn't.
I would never have. This is why I hold your Bitcoin now, so you can't sell it.
I know. No, I never put it into cold storage. Like
that was the most expensive honeymoon of all time. Now, wasn't it? You dickhead.
It was worth it. That's a good point. Actually, it was expensive, wasn't it? But
because I bet you sold it right down the freaking bottom as well. So
no. Sorry,
like a 20.
No. You've misunderstood. So what I was is we bought it there. It went down, and it recovered just over what I bought it.
Oh, okay.
So technically, instead of putting in the number, I took out £1,000. So my initial buy was £1,000 less.
Okay, so
I was never going to sell at a loss because I would never be able to explain this to you. Yeah. I'd never be able to live this down.
Yeah, still about a 4x down, aren't you? Then over the. Like,
oh, definitely. That honeymoon now cost me £4.5 grand, and it was only a local one in UK, the honeymoon. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't like the freaking Maldives, the freaking proper all out there.
Oh yeah.
And then times that one by 4 or 5. Now you really are in pain. That's
yeah. But I think doing a sell is actually quite healthy for you as well, because it gives you the sense of being able to take out. It gives you the confidence. So it showed Holly that it did work. It was a real thing, and I gave her a honeymoon out of our investment. So it wasn't all lost. So it was like one of those sort of mental games, and it worked. Your second part of that was debt, wasn't it? And how you cope with that. And I think, again, advice for people listening to this, it's just to buy in what you would normally put in your savings. Once you've got enough to pay for that boiler, when you got enough to pay for new tires and stuff like that in your bank, and the service in your car, because what you don't want to be doing is hovering over that sell button because you haven't got enough money to do the day-to-day. So that's exactly what I do. And to be honest, we've discussed this lots over the last few years. Concentrate in plan A. So plan A is your career. So the more you do, it works. So I've worked my absolute tits off to get to where I am over the last 5 years. I've had 3 big promotions, haven't I? And I'm in a position now where the play money is becoming a lot more easy to have. So it means even with the life situation I'm in, I've got the money to now put a decent amount in every month. So it does add up. And I've been doing it for the last 18 months. And I remember when I told you that, I was quite proud. You were like, what about the other freaking 12 months before that? And I was like, I know. But again, even though I believed at 2.5 grand, I wasn't putting in. Weird, isn't it? I was doing the Revolut, but I wasn't doing anything else. And then when it started going up to 3, 4, 5, I thought, shit, let's get on it. So even still, I believed. I FOMO'd in, technically.
Oh yeah, well, this is human emotion. They sell the bottom and they buy the top.
Yeah,
that is what people want to do. When something goes down loads, they assume it's going all the way down and want to get out before it goes to 0. And once something goes up by 10x, they're like, oh, right, now I want to buy it. So that's the thing, when you're an investor, you have to fight your own human intuition, which is to just follow the crowd. And it's literally, you have to try and do the opposite. So when the whole sentiment is against something, that's the time to buy it. When everyone's euphoric and you get into a taxi and your taxi driver goes, I'm buying Bitcoin today. That's the time when you go, right, okay, this is probably a top now, because this guy, I shouldn't be getting stopped just in day-to-day life and being spoken to about my own investment. This is strange. So these people don't really know what they're doing. They haven't researched this. They don't really know what they're investing in. So the second we do have a 20% dip, they're all going to sell, and it's going to be really, really painful. So yeah, that's I mean, and this is the thing, like most people that like have never invested, they all succumb to the same thing. And it's like just about everyone that I know, probably other than you, they all actually know, even you actually, everyone that came in brought their first big chunk of Bitcoin at the highest Bitcoin had ever been in price, at an all-time high. Every single person, including me, I bought an all-time high. It was, and it was only £1,000, but that was the all-time high right at the time. And you bought it 3.5 or whatever, but it had never been a penny more expensive when you bought it.
Nope.
So it's we all succumb to it, but then you've just got to go, right, now I need to have freaking diamond hands and hodl all the way through. Now I need to believe in this because I'm buying an all-time high. Everyone wanted a discount, and I have mates that were sitting around at the same time as you were, and they were going, well, you got it at £1,000, it's now at 3.5. I'm going to wait for it to come back down. Bitcoin's volatile, so I'll get it. Ideally, I might even sneak in and get it for £800 or £600, and I'll actually get in cheaper than you. And they waited another month, another 3 months, and before they know it, it's 6, 7, 8K. I'm like, well, now I'm definitely waiting for the dip. And by the time they finally YOLO in, it's like 12, 13K. It's around Christmas. That's when they finally go, right, I capitulate. I'm coming in. Boom. That's the top. See you later. Hopefully you can hold for 4 years because we're down all the way now.
Or the other type of friend is one that goes, I'm not buying in at £8,000. I'm buying in at £9,000. It goes all the way up to 12, 13. Then it crashes to 2 and they go, told you, Bitcoin is a scam. And you're like, you bellend. But yeah, it's interesting. Human nature is, it's incredible. And to hodl is a skill, it's an art, and I think you have to be trained in living with Bitcoin, because it is hard to do the roller coaster.
We have to get it as well. It isn't just an investment. It isn't. This is why it's like there's all the other investments. There's freaking 1 million investments that you could ever put your money into, and the main objective of why people invest in any of these things is because they want the number to go up and they want to make more money than they put in. Bitcoin is different. It is the one single asset that is completely different, and it's a hedge against the existing system that is corrupt. Our governments are bloated. They are printing money out of thin air. They're inflating wages. They're inflating the current supply of fiat money all around the world. Everyone is getting paid less and less every year. The price of goods is going up. Savings is at an all-time low. All they want you to do, the only thing that is good right now, is debt. They want to just lever you up with debt, 0% interest rates all over the place. Just loan money, because we know you don't have any. So we'll just loan fake money, and they're just piling it on. And Bitcoin is the hedge that when this system goes pop and it all goes into hyperinflation and the whole world becomes like a bigger version of Zimbabwe, then Bitcoin will be the place that still holds its value. It has a scarce asset. You can take control of it. The governments can't seize it or take it away from you. And that's the thing, that then once you realize all those things and you realize how corrupt the existing system is and how Bitcoin is the lifeboat away from it, you literally don't give a shit about 80%, 90% drawdowns, because you go, this is my life raft. I don't care what the value of my life raft is. It's my life raft. If I'm not in this, I'm on the Titanic going down with everyone else. They think they're partying at the moment, living in the VIP kind of cabins on the Titanic, but you're sat there in your lifeboat going away, watching the Titanic going down, and they're still partying. You're like, you're making money at the moment, but have you seen the state of the ship? It's got a big hole in it and the water's very cold. So I would get into this life raft now. It's like, oh, but the life raft looks a bit uncomfortable, looks a bit risky. Yeah, it is. But it's less risky than where you are right now. It's a matter of time. And just because there's a few of us over here, you're staying with the masses because that feels safe. But look, the masses are stupid and there's only so many life rafts. So we've grabbed one and we're off on our way. And once you get that, hodling Bitcoin is so easy. I don't even I like watching the price. It's nice when you watch the number go up and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. But it doesn't even matter. This gives me my financial freedom. It allows me to move anywhere in the world, take my financial wealth wherever I want. I can pass any amount of value to anyone in the world, and no one can say anything. There's no bank that's going to ring me up in the middle of the night and freeze a transaction and go, Gareth, what's this about? No, there's no one in Bitcoin that rings you up and asks you that question when I'm just sending from one wallet to another. It just goes.
Yeah.
And that's what Bitcoin's about. That's the main reason why I invested it in the first place, as well as I knew it was going to be a life-changing, this is the gold rush, but it's going to be the Bitcoin rush. And anyone that gets in early is going to become, essentially the new wealthy, then the new elite in the new financial world.
These few percent, isn't it? The interestingly, you talk about the Titanic, because that is such a clever way of describing it, because I think what you alluded to is it's not just about gains. And whilst the question, I guess, straight back to you is, so if you weren't going to, so yeah, you believe in the big game of this is your life raft, and I get that. So I guess you're saying it's going to keep you financially secure for the rest of life, but the bigger picture is to sort of fight against the way that the world of wealth and money and fiat is going, as in down the pan. If you weren't guaranteed to make it wealth, would you still support Bitcoin in its mission to overtake and be the new sort of holding of money?
Yeah, well, that's always the issue. So as close as I can get to an answer to that really is, when I was investing before, I would always invest, and I always made sure my career was in ethical companies and stocks. So I would never invest in banks, in oil companies, in pharmaceutical companies. I just didn't believe in them. I thought they were making the world worse. So I would try and invest. So I invested in Tesla. I invested in Amazon. People might argue that's bad, but I think it's largely a greater good. So I would try and invest in things that were bettering the world. So yeah, but you do also, and the great thing about anything like this, when you get something right that is going to improve the world in a material way, then you will make gains. It's nearly impossible not to. And the thing is, I made sure I just focused, and in reality, I always thought about this from a young age. I remember going to a presentation with this financial guy on stage, and it always stuck with me. He just went, divide your life into thirds, and the first third of your life you should spend learning. The second third of your life you should spend earning, and then the final third, give back. So I made sure that I basically went 25, 50, 75. Let's just do it like that. So up to 25, that's pretty much university. You get out and you just need to figure out what kind of job you need to do and just learn, just soak stuff in. Then from 25 to 50, just maximize gains. Don't worry about freaking solving world hunger, setting up charities and all that, because the amount of impact you're going to have whilst you're poor is basically nothing. Like, you can donate £10 a month to some charities and all that and feel like you're Mother Teresa, but in reality you're not, because you're poor and you're making basically no impact. You're going to make much more impact if you nail it, get to the top of something, become very wealthy, and then when you hit 50, or maybe hopefully earlier, you get to then flip into giving back mode, and then you can make a big impact. So that's what was always my focus. And so, yeah, so when I was looking at stuff like this, I was always looking for, number one, gains, but then number two, it needs to be adding value to the world. So once I saw Bitcoin, it just ticked every single box. It was like, it's such a no-brainer. This is like freaking everything. This is like my gold, or the silver bullet, where you're going, like, normally I was looking for like a Tesla that's solving kind of like the problem for energy in the world. That was a huge one. So I was like, I'm just going to back Tesla all the way. And I actually looked at it, even when I invested in Tesla, it was massively overpriced. The entire market thought it was a scam. Elon's just he's never going to do it. And it was weird. And I never thought the gains were going to be there. Actually, I just went, I'm going to buy a load of Tesla stock and I'm never going to sell it, because I just want to support Tesla in their mission.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I ended up being right. Elon smashed it, and the gains were just absolutely crazy. You're like, oh, right, well, that's a nice mistake. Like, I didn't realize the gains were really there. I thought I was buying an overpriced company already, and turns out it was still 20 or 30 times underpriced. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. So So I think in my probably the example I would use there is Tesla, and I did buy it even though I didn't think the gains were there, and it ended up being very profitable.
Yeah. Well, I remember Bitcoin really did help you on your journey with Bitcoin ultimately, didn't it? So I guess because you believed in that, I know you had in already, but when you did you ever sell any of that to buy Bitcoin? I'm sure you did.
So what, Tesla?
Yeah.
No,
When it went,
no. It was all my
was it your other stock? Was it?
it was all my my company shares. I dumped.
That was it.
That was the
That
biggest
was it.
chunk of it anyway. That was the biggest. I literally sold all of that, and just like 80% of it went straight into Bitcoin. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think I
'Cause-
even had Tesla back then. I think I bought that with some of money that came later.
Okay. So for me, so you say about getting it, I didn't get even this is the ridiculous thing. It only just clicked with me today that I was in Zimbabwe and I remember I bought a beer and I was like, there's $1 billion bill there. I was like, what the hell's that about? And they use the dollar now. Zimbabwe uses the dollar. And just didn't get it. I was like, so $1 billion, where, like, how much is that worth? And they said the paper's worth more than the monetary value. And I just didn't get it. And they were telling me about hyperinflation and stuff like that. I thought, oh, well, I just thought it was corrupt. In the less wealthy countries, sort of, the rich are rich and the poor are like so poor. And this was one of those countries. And it was a real culture experience and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until I read, to be honest, a bit of a plug for you, Bitcoin Lessons, and I done a bit of beta testing for you, but I'd never actually gone through the whole series of the lessons. And that really is good, especially the first, I think, 3 lessons. It really teaches you the value of money. And everyone knows what the value of money is. It's what you live on. You buy stuff with it. You keep some in your bank, but it isn't. It's the bargaining tool, isn't it? And you went back, I don't know how many years, 600, 900 years, or whatever it was, and it was the rice stones or whatever this type of stone was, and then it became I can't remember, but anyways, different things, and then they eventually they wanted to just distribute it and be able to give a little bit, and it was another one, a type of potatoes or crops or something, and eventually it became gold, didn't it? What was it? So it was basically bargaining tools, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was bartering at the very beginning.
That's it, barter.
When you really go back through the history of money, essentially we're a load of cavemen running around, and everyone's just hunting and gathering for themselves. But then you're not going to progress if you're spending most of your time hunting and gathering. So eventually people get into groups and start going, how about you hunt, I'll do crops, I'll look after babies, and people start to specialize. But then these groups start to get bigger and bigger, and bartering starts to break down because you want too many different things. If I've just got a sheep, I can't divide a sheep up into lots of pieces and keep the sheep alive. And if I want some bread from you, some beads from him, and so bartering, so essentially you need money. And that's when different civilizations around the world created different forms of money. There's seashells, rice stones, all these types. There were beads. And every early type of money, when they first invent it, it's scarce, difficult to create, and quite easily divisible and works as money. But every single one eventually loses its scarcity and is very easy to create, just basically based on human evolution and industry moving faster. So you can take, the entire enslavery of Africa largely came from the fact that they used glass beads, which were very hard to create in Africa. But when the Europeans went and invaded them, their industrial revolution was much more advanced, and they could create glass in an industrial scale. So once they realized that essentially the currency of Africa was glass beads, they just went straight back and went, let's just make an absolute shit ton of these beads. And we can just rock in and buy everything largely for free, and took over an entire economy. And that was like one of the first versions of hyperinflation. You had a limited supply of beads at one point where there was, people would really covet, and it would take a lot of time to make them. And overnight, the supply went from like this to boom, like infinite supply. Like, how many do you want? That's how many we can have. And that's just continued throughout each evolution of the history of money, and the one we're in right now with fiat money, exactly the same things happening. And when you travel to countries like African countries, South American with Argentina, and Brazil, we all think, that's their corrupt country.
Exactly.
And it's never going to happen to Britain. It's never going to happen to anyone in Europe. It's never going to happen to America. But guess what? Every single person in those countries thought the same. And now they don't think that because it's happened. And it's going to happen here.
On your lessons from my memory, you actually, I think, spoke about this turn, this 300 years. And we're coming to it towards the end if history repeats itself. And if I remember rightly, gold was too difficult to divide because it was worth too much. So even a little chipping of it would be too much value to buy something like a loaf of bread. So they invented silver, which was a lot easier to build, wasn't it? And that straight away, look at our currency. We have change, which is now coppers. Can you even spend them? Even the blooming amusement arcades don't supply them anymore, do they? That's how nothing value they cost. Like,
well, it's with inflation as well, isn't it? You can't have a penny and a 2p. Like we used to use those when I was a kid, and so obviously a penny back then has the spending power of like a 10p now. That's why I remember the days of actual penny sweets. Now, when you go into the penny mix, what's it called? Yeah, the penny mix. Yeah, it's still called penny mix, even though
it is the penny mix. Yeah,
it's still
pick a mix.
Oh, pick and mix. That's it. Pick and mix. But really, it used to be like a penny a sweet. Now it's like 15 or 20p a sweet. So that's why coppers are completely useless now, because if a copper can't buy a single thing, what is the point? Like you might as well just get rid of them and go, the lowest denomination of currency now is like 10 or 20p, because that has the same spending power of 20 years ago of what a 1 and a 2p had. So
and so my journey, I think, actually started then, and I know that wasn't actually long ago. You're probably talking 8-9 months ago, probably. It was before the recent bull run anyway, and luckily it was, because it allowed me to proper go all in, and I went like that early enough. But it's because I believe now 100% what you're backing, and it's having that understanding and knowledge. And that's why spending the time to do the research and that stuff that you've put in that app is not readily available for the layman just to find by accident. You have to dig for it. You have to find it. You have to want to read it and want to believe it. But you've popped it into a really easy way to digest it. And a lot of the time I read something, I go, yeah, next. But you ask a bloody question after every page. So I have to have read it, otherwise I keep getting no's. And you have to go, okay, I read it now. So if anyone's listening to this, I would say Bitcoin Lessons is something you download it and just try it yourself. And I think it will change your life. I honestly believe that. So, you know what you say about giving back? You haven't actually made your in your old style of making it 50. You're not actually there yet, but you're already giving back. So to be fair, I think there'll be a lot of grateful people out there that actually do take the time on your app.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I ended up just fast forwarding the second third really, because I had a number that I wanted to hit by 50 and I hit it at 35. So I just went, all right, I've got to give back. And
that's true, actually.
It's already starting to sting, to be fair, because I knew that the app wasn't going to be like huge, like going to make kind of crazy gains. But I've looked back, and obviously that was about 1.5 years ago that I built that, and the price of Bitcoin was very cheap back then. And if I had put them into Bitcoin instead of the app, that would be a considerable amount of money. The app was not cheap. So that app is going to be the most expensive app of all time as time keeps going on. So that's already a big contribution. So I'm already like
that is your Mother Teresa act, isn't it? To be fair, because now that's, to be honest, something we should talk about in this pod is, because obviously it's a weekly thing and we're going to sort of touch on different topics every week. So today was like a bit of an introduction to how we got into it, but I think we should talk about the price. So I'll have a look at what it is right this second. There you go. So we're at 38,700 today, which is a bit lower than probably what it was earlier today. So we've dropped 2K. So just think about that. That is what, 5% drop. And I didn't even bat an eyelid. I don't even think about it. Like, just think about it. The numbers. And I remember we always laughed about the day that we would text each other and say, ouch, it hurt today. I lost a year's wage. And we laugh about it. And I think sometimes that's just insane. And I know when I've lost that kind of cash, I don't even want to think about what you've lost. But then week later, it's back up, isn't it? It's just insane numbers. But again, this is welcome to the bull run.
Yeah, and the thing is, everyone's got to get accustomed to it. Like, if you're going to be successful in any type of investment, then it's very hard to get to life-changing money because people will bottle it before they get there. So
yes,
if you take that 10K, which for the average person is a huge stack of cash, that's going to take 6 to 12 to 24 months to save up. You finally go and plump it into an investment, and let's just say over the next 5 years, if you just sat, you did all the research right, you put your 10K in, and it's going to go 100x all the way up to the £1 million. You've absolutely smashed it. Well done. All you got to do is sit back and just wait 5 years. 10K to $1 million, boom, you've done it. Nice and easy. And everyone that like looks at people that have done that go, oh, that was easy. You bought a lottery ticket, 10K to $1 million.
Yeah.
That was easy. You go, well, just think about it, because it had to go from 10K to 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 to 200, and you're still not selling. You're still like, fuck off, I'm fucking holding. And then nothing goes straight up over a 5-year period either. You're gonna have lots of big pullbacks, and you're gonna be like, oh my, like the amount of the emotional roller coaster you go through is insane. And just to really have the conviction to know that you're right and to hold, that is such a skill. And so there's very, very few people that do all the hard work, make the right decision, and then get in at 10K and then sell at the million. They nearly everyone, I would say 98% of people, bottle it on one of the pullbacks between 10 and a million. When it goes to say 200K and pulls back to 150, they're like, okay, I apologize, I'm out. I should have sold at 200, I'm out. And even though they know that they're right, they let their emotion take over, because it's life-changing money. Like the 10K was life-changing because it took them 2 years to save that. So when you turn 10K to 150, every single financial investor in the world will tell you to sell every penny to change your life, put it into your mortgage. Well done. But it's a loser's mindset. If you've got conviction, you need to keep holding and really trust your gut. And especially when it's something like Bitcoin, which is, it's still early, but just about every smart person that I know and respect in the financial world is all in on Bitcoin by now. It's like, it's kind of like 5 years ago, it's still a little bit more, what have I spotted that a lot of smart people haven't? This is a little bit concerning. There's quite a few people I respect that don't like Bitcoin yet. I fast forward 5 years, everyone that I respect now likes Bitcoin. So I'm like, well, yeah, that's good. I'm like 100% kind of confirmed now. All my biases have been confirmed, and it's a no-brainer, but it still takes guts, and you've still got a lot of emotional kind of stresses that go through, and it's a skill set that most people probably never learn because they never get into investing and they never see these kind of price swings. And even in traditional investing, you get quite big swings. You're going to have big market crashes. You're going to have terrorist events. You're going to have financial collapses. It doesn't matter how good an investor you are. If you're in the market when those things happen, it's just, it's devastating. But if you understand what companies you've invested in, then it doesn't matter if a financial collapse happens or a terrorist attack, because provided the world hasn't ended and everyone's been nuked, then good companies will come out of the ashes again.
Yeah.
Just hold the stock. Like, it's gone down 70% or whatever, but everything did. So if your companies were good before, then they'll be good tomorrow, and just keep holding through. And that's exactly the same thing with Bitcoin. But it's a skill set, and it's something it's literally, I actually almost compare it to being like working on your fitness. Like, it's a constant thing that you need to keep maintaining, being fit and practice it. And it's hard. It's not, if it was easy, if everyone could have a 6-pack and pecs and be freaking ripped, then they would. But it's like, it's not. Like, most people aren't, because it's really fucking hard to do it. And it's the same with investing. Like, why isn't everyone rich? It's like,
investing, a life decision, isn't it? Yeah.
And investing, it's a skill, and it's really hard. You have to work on it every day. Like, there's still days that sometimes I wake up and just go, you know what, I don't want this fucking stress anymore. Bitcoin's freaking taking over the world, and it's going to be like the best decision ever. Fucking hell, it's stressful. And so maybe I should just go, fuck it, I want to delete all Bitcoin apps off my phone, just freaking convert it into property and never have to worry about it again. But nah, it's in me. I don't know what I'd do with my days if I wasn't stressing about the price of Bitcoin.
I know, and it always makes me laugh when people even joke or like pretend they don't check it 50,000 times a day. Every time I get an opportunity at work, I do check it. It's ridiculous. I have my iWatch and just like, oh, what is it? Oh, okay. Don't know why, because it's a kind of irrelevant, but it's just a game, isn't it? It's like fake money, isn't it, when you see it going up because you're not taking it out. And I think you make a really good point about, I think when it gets to that 500,000 in your amount of money you have, like that is balls. Like it's balls to stay in when you're lost a load and you want to sort of save what's left. But the other thing is when it is going up, and you're absolutely right, it's going to go to 200 and it's going to drop to 150 overnight, and you'll be like, no. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. A few months' time, it will be back again, and
yeah,
it's a roller coaster.
It also relates back to the point you said before, which is your plan A and your plan B. So your investments and your retirement, and it's the only way I probably actually managed to survive those initial big peaks and troughs, because I went all in, but I went all in on my plan B. But my plan A was still going amazingly well. I was still a director in a big PLC company with a nice wage coming in. So even though it had taken me my entire life, pretty much my 12 years of earning money, I had put every single fucking penny I had into Bitcoin that was left over. But it's weird because the first 12 years, I wasn't earning that much for quite a lot of it. It was only the last, say, 3 or 4 that I'd actually got to a point where I'm like, oh, wow, money is chunking in now. So when I looked at it and went, yeah, this is 12 years worth of money, but actually it's not. I'm at a level now because I've done so much hard work on my plan A, which is getting as high up as I can. I can actually get that 12 years worth of money back, even if it all just explodes. I can probably make it back in 3 to 5 years. So it's still going to be 3 to 5 years worth of work that I'm essentially going to be doing for free because I've gone and set fire to all this money over here. But that's what my gamble is. And provided you become okay with that, then the decision's fine. You just go, yeah, worst case scenario, I set fire to 5 years worth of earnings. Best case scenario, I'm retired in 5 years. Is that a risk that's worth taking? I think it is. Let's go. And
the risk is not taking it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you end up taking a decision. You balance the risks, and you realize there's more risk not doing it than doing it. So you do it. And then once you've done that, you're like, but the risk wasn't zero. And obviously, like as a poker player, I know exactly like how these things can work. And even though you're 98% chance of winning the hand, that 2% can come up sometimes. And don't be surprised if it does. And like, oh no, it's so unlucky. It's like, no, there's reasons why, unless there's zero risk on one side and 100% on your side, then it's not guaranteed. So you have to accept that something can go wrong and really be okay with it. Seriously, okay. Some people say it, but then they get a drawdown and they bottle it. So it's like you weren't okay then. but yeah, I think working on your plan A is like so important because it de-stresses the plan B.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because if you've got the earning potential to make up, because you think about it, if you do well in your career, it's only the last few years where you actually have that money to build your savings. So ultimately, it's not realistically 12 years, like you said. It's probably a few months ultimately, isn't it, when you think about it, when you get to the end of your plan A. So the beauty that we're in and why we're so lucky is we were young enough. So even if it goes tits up, even for you now, you've still got enough working time to go and earn enough to have a good end of life, if you like. Whereas not everyone's in that boat. So you have to live to your means, don't you, and put into your means. And I always think it doesn't matter. You've got potentially, we're going to be working, pension age is going to be 72, 73, probably 75 by the time we get there. So, yeah, it doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
Yeah, and there won't be any pension money by the time we get there. I could almost guarantee that hyperinflation has occurred. So
it'll be Bitcoin.
Exactly. Like they won't, and the government won't have any Bitcoin, and your pension scheme won't be in Bitcoin, so it's gone.
Yeah.
And literally, when I tell this to people, they look at me and go, "Yeah, you're crazy." It's like, go and ask the people in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela, and all those. They all paid into pensions too. Guess where the money went? It just evaporates. Like if the money that you are using is being infinitely printed, eventually it goes wrong. And the last 12 months, if people have not seen the warning signs in the UK and the US with the amount of money being printed, with 80% of people sat at home being paid 80% of their wages just directly from government. Like, if that doesn't ring alarm bells, I do not know what does. And the only thing I can think is that people just are completely switched off. They put their fingers in their ears and just switch on Netflix and just watch the Kardashians or something and just pretend everything's fine. Because if you spend any amount of time just studying what is going on, it just doesn't add up. And the people that get up on stage and stand behind those plimps and talk these nice speeches that tell you not to worry, they are lying. They are outright lying. But it's always the way. Like, a comforting lie is much more palatable than uncomfortable truth. And the politicians and the bankers, unfortunately, they're giving the public the comforting lie and telling them everything's going to be okay. When it comes to money, anyway, they always make sure money is fine, but they tell them to be scared of everything else. The only thing governments and banks want you to have confidence in is the money. They want you to be terrified of everything else, because that just keeps you scared. But they want to make sure you got confidence in the money. It's always funny whenever I watch, like, I never watch the news, but whenever you do, there's always a banker on there, the head of the Bank of England or whatever it is, and everything he's got to say is brilliant. It's like, yeah, the economy's freaking flying. It's all good. Like, even if there's a disaster, it's like, no, we've got it under control. Whenever you talk about any other subject around the country, around education, around health, around the roads, around immigration, everything's on fire. Everything's a disaster. It's like, why is everything awful other than the money? It's like the biggest. It's like, this is just because it's the well tried and tested formula that every single government has ever used. Great way to control the population is to have them in a constant state of fear, but the only thing they trust is the money. And guess where they get the money from? They get it from the government. It's so manipulative, and it works on so many people. But unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people over the next 10, 20, 30 years with a very rude awakening when they realize their pension schemes, their wages, their life savings.
It's going to be the ultimate recession, isn't it? On that note, I think I want to touch into that topic in more detail. So I think that could be a good start for the next pod.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the inflation game, because I've enjoyed it, discussing it with you in the past, and I think you need to go into more depth into some of the areas. So we'll leave that till next week. Yeah.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I just enjoy the week. I'm looking forward to strapping up and keeping on this roller coaster bull run.
Strapping on.
Strap in. You can strap on. I'm going to strap in. Belt up.
All right, sounds okay. Until next time.
Yeah, have a good one. Thanks, guys.